I can't rewrite it in Warren Buffett's exact style or imitate him directly. What I can do is give you a fully original long-form rewrite in English with a similar high-level feel. Calm, blunt, reflective, persuasive, financially disciplined, and built for a strong YouTube voiceover. I'll also make it at least as expansive in substance and flow. Here is the rewrite. I want you to do something most people avoid for their entire lives. I want you to stop distracting yourself for a moment. Stop scrolling. Stop fantasizing. Stop telling yourself that everything is going to work out somehow just because you are a good person, or because you work hard, or because you deserve better than what you have right now. None of that matters if the numbers do not support the story you are telling yourself. Look at your life honestly. Look at your bank account. Look at your debts. Look at your habits. Look at the pressure you feel every month when bills arrive. Look at the silent fear that appears when you think about losing your job, your clients, your business, or your ability to earn. Strip away the image, the excuses, the optimism, the motivational quotes, and the social media version of yourself. What remains? That is your financial reality. If your income stopped today, how long would your current life survive without collapsing? 30 days, 90 days, half a year? Most people do not want to answer that question because they already know the answer is humiliating. They know they are not standing on a foundation. They are balancing on a tightrope. One emergency, one illness, one layoff, one recession, one wrong decision, and everything starts shaking. That is not freedom. That is not security. That is not success. That is dependence wearing expensive clothes. For decades, people have been told that if they study hard, get respectable work, earn a decent income, and keep moving upward, everything will eventually take care of itself. But look around. Is that what you see? You see people earning more than their parents ever earned, yet living with more anxiety than their parents ever lived with. You see professionals with good salaries who cannot sleep at night. You see households with 2 incomes and no margin. You see people who look prosperous from the outside, but are financially fragile on the inside. And the tragedy is not just that this is happening. The tragedy is that most of them do not understand why. They blame the economy. They blame inflation. They blame the government. They blame employers. They blame housing prices, taxes, corporations, bad luck, and unfair timing. Some of those things are real. Some of those pressures are legitimate. But if you want the truth that can actually change your life, you have to be willing to hear something more uncomfortable than that. In most cases, the system did not destroy your future. Your habits did. Day after day, decision after decision, purchase after purchase, impulse after impulse. You built a machine that now controls you. And because the machine was built slowly, because the damage happened one small compromise at a time, you barely noticed it. That is how financial mediocrity traps people. It does not usually arrive like a storm. It arrives like dust, a little here, a little there, until one day you wake up and realize you have spent 20 years working and have very little to show for it except fatigue, obligations, and a lifestyle you cannot afford to pause. That is why intelligence is not enough. Education is not enough. Income is not enough. Ambition is not enough. If your behavior is broken, your future will be broken with it. I have seen people with enormous talent remain poor in every way that matters. I have seen people who could speak beautifully, negotiate brilliantly, and impress everyone in the room, yet they had no control over themselves when it came to money. I have seen people who were exceptional at earning but pathetic at keeping. And I have seen ordinary people, quiet people, disciplined people, patient people build lives of extraordinary stability because they understood one thing that the flashy people never understood. Wealth is not built by appearance. Wealth is built by behavior. That is what this is really about. This is not about becoming a billionaire. This is not about chasing some fantasy of yachts, private jets, and social media success. This is about escaping financial fragility. This is about building a life where panic does not sit at your dinner table. This is about owning enough of your time, your resources, and your future that you are no longer one bad month away from fear. And if you want that life, then you must confront the habits that keep you trapped. Not one habit, not two, three patterns that quietly destroy the financial future of millions of people who would swear they are trying their best. The first is the addiction to looking successful. The second is the addiction to exciting money. The third is the addiction to short-term comfort at the cost of long-term power. If you understand these 3 patterns, your entire relationship with money can change. Let us begin with the first. The first habit that keeps people financially weak is the need to perform success instead of building it. This is one of the most dangerous traps in modern life because it hides behind praise. People will applaud you while you destroy yourself. They will compliment your car, your watch, your apartment, your vacations, your wardrobe, your upgrades, your taste, taste, your lifestyle. They will tell you that you are doing well. They will envy you. They will use you as proof that hard work pays off. And all the while, you may be bleeding to death financially. That is the madness of status spending. It gives you social reward in exchange for future freedom. It makes you feel elevated in the present while quietly lowering the ceiling of your life. Many people do not buy things because those things improve their lives in any meaningful way. They buy things because those things improve the image they hope other people have of them. They buy symbols. They buy signals. They buy reassurance. They buy emotional anesthesia. They buy a temporary feeling of arrival. But here is the problem. Image has an endless appetite. Once you start feeding your identity with visible proof of success, you never feel finished. There will always be someone with a better version of what you own. A larger home, a newer car, a more exclusive vacation, a better neighborhood, a more impressive restaurant, a more expensive school, a more luxurious routine. When your self-worth depends on visible comparison, peace becomes impossible. You are no longer living your life. You are managing an exhibition, and exhibitions are expensive. The poor man thinks that wealth means spending without guilt. The disciplined man understands that wealth means choosing carefully because every dollar has future value attached to it. That is the part so many people never learn. Money is never just money. Money is stored choice. Money is stored time. Money is stored flexibility. Money is stored peace of mind. Money is the ability to absorb shocks without panic, to seize opportunities without begging, to walk away from what degrades you, and to say no to what enslaves you. When you waste money on things whose main purpose is social display, you are not simply buying an object. You are selling away options your future self may desperately need. That luxury purchase is not just a purchase. It is delayed freedom, liquidated. That lifestyle upgrade is not just a reward. It is a recurring obligation disguised as self-expression. This is where people confuse income with wealth, and that confusion ruins lives. Income is what comes in. Wealth is what remains. Income can be loud. Wealth is usually silent. Income can be spent in a month. Wealth can protect a family for decades. Income impresses strangers. Wealth protects the owner. But because real wealth is largely invisible, many people choose visible substitutes. They want the appearance of prosperity more than the substance of it. They want to look like they are winning even if the scoreboard says otherwise. You must understand this clearly. The desire to look rich is one of the most reliable ways to stay financially ordinary forever. A house can become a burden. A car can become a tax. A lifestyle can become a prison. Every visible upgrade comes with invisible maintenance. More insurance, more repairs, more subscription costs, more expectations, more comparisons, more pressure to keep earning at the same pace just to hold your position. And the more impressive your life becomes to others, the more fragile it often becomes to you. That is the joke. People admire what may actually be suffocating you. So ask yourself an unpleasant question. How much of what you spend is designed to serve your life? And how much is designed to perform your identity? How many things do you own because they truly solve a problem, create lasting joy, or improve your daily existence in a meaningful way? And how many do you own because they help you feel respected, admired, validated, desired, or superior? That question matters because the answer reveals whether you are building a life or staging a production. People who become financially strong usually learn to develop an inner standard. They stop needing every decision to be socially legible. They can drive something modest. They can live below their means. They can say no to the upgrade, no to the status game, no to the pressure to keep pace with people who are often more indebted and more insecure than they appear. They do not need every stranger to understand their choices, because their choices are not performances. Their choices are strategies, and strategies beat performances every time. Now suppose you manage to escape that first trap. Suppose you stop spending to impress. Suppose you reduce waste, control lifestyle inflation, and begin saving meaningful amounts of money. Most people think that once they reach that point, they are safe. They are not, because the second habit waits for them. The second habit that keeps people poor is the belief that money must move fast to matter. This is the fantasy of exciting money, the obsession with quick wins, hot trades, secret opportunities, explosive upside, and dramatic returns. It is the belief that slow wealth is inferior to fast wealth, and that patient investing is somehow less intelligent than aggressive speculation. This lie has destroyed more financial futures than most people realize. People say they want to invest, but many do not actually want to invest. They want stimulation. They want stories. They want action. They want to feel clever. They want to tell other people that they found something before everyone else did. They want the emotional intoxication of risk combined with the flattering illusion of sophistication. In other words, they do not want ownership. They want a casino with spreadsheets and modern technology technology has made this worse. Never before has speculation been so convenient, so attractive, so gamified, and so socially rewarded. You can sit on your couch, tap your screen, and move money around every few minutes while convincing yourself that you are being strategic. But frequent action does not equal wisdom. Noise does not equal opportunity. Motion does not equal progress. In fact, for many people, the more active they become, the less effective they become. Why? Because markets do not only test intelligence, they test temperament, they test patience, they test whether you can endure boredom, uncertainty, and temporary discomfort without reaching for emotional relief disguised as decision-making. Most cannot. They chase what is rising because they are afraid of missing out. They sell what is falling because they are afraid of losing more. They look to the crowd for validation, then wonder why their results look average at best and disastrous at worst. They enter late, panic early, and repeat the cycle with each new trend. This is not investing. This is emotional reaction dressed in financial language. Real investing is quieter than people expect. It is often repetitive. It is often uneventful. It does not flatter your ego on a daily basis. It does not produce constant excitement. It requires you to accept that good outcomes usually come from consistent decisions compounded over a long period, not from heroic moments of brilliance. That idea is boring to people who are still addicted to drama, but boring is often where the money is. Think about how irrational most people become when prices move. If the market falls, they feel poorer, weaker, more afraid, even if they are buying productive assets for the long term. If prices rise sharply, they feel smarter, more confident, more eager to buy, even if those assets are now less attractive than before. They respond to mood, momentum, and headlines as if those things change the underlying nature of what they own. This is the danger of letting price movement dictate emotional movement. If you own part of a productive business, the question is not, what did the price do this afternoon? The real question is, what do I own? Why do I own it? What is it likely to produce over time? And am I behaving in a way that supports my long-term objective? But people do not like those questions, because those questions require thought. They require stillness. They require independence. And independence is psychologically expensive. It is much easier to join the crowd, especially when the crowd is loud, confident, and temporarily right. That is why patience has such value. Not because it sounds noble, but because it is rare. Very few people can remain disciplined when others are euphoric. Very few can remain calm when others are terrified. Very few can keep buying sensible assets regularly without turning every market fluctuation into a personal crisis. Yet that is exactly the behavior that builds durable wealth. If you want to escape the second trap, you must stop demanding entertainment from your money. Money is not there to thrill you. Money is there to serve you. It is a tool, not a theme park. The moment you need your portfolio to make you feel alive, you have already made it dangerous. A mature investor learns to respect repetition, contribute, buy quality, keep costs low, avoid foolish risks, ignore noise, stay the course, review occasionally, continue learning, continue earning, continue allocating capital with sobriety rather than excitement. That sounds simple because it is simple. It is just not emotionally glamorous. And because it is not glamorous, many people abandon it in search of something more exciting, more dramatic, more immediate. Then they discover too late that the market has no compassion for impatience. The market does not care how badly you want fast results. It does not reward urgency. It rewards discipline. Now we come to the third habit, and this may be the most destructive of all because it infects everything else. The third habit that keeps people poor is the inability to think in decades. Not months, not quarters, not this bonus cycle, not this year's vacation budget. Decades. This is where compounding lives. And this is where most people betray themselves. They understand the idea of growth in theory. They know that saving and investing over time can produce large results. They have heard the examples. They have seen the charts. They nod when people talk about long-term discipline. But emotionally, they do not believe it deeply enough to align their behavior with it. They still live as if the present moment is the only moment that truly matters. So they interrupt the process. They save, then withdraw. They invest, then panic. They make progress, then sabotage it for a temporary indulgence. They start building, then decide they have been good for long enough and deserve to dismantle what they built. They treat long-term compounding like a side project instead of a governing principle. That is why they remain stuck. Compounding is powerful, but it is extremely sensitive to interruption. It does not merely require contribution. It requires time. And time is exactly what impulsive behavior destroys. In the beginning, progress always looks small. That is what discourages people. The early years feel underwhelming. The account grows, but not dramatically. dramatically. The habits form, but the visible reward seems modest. The discipline is real, but the external evidence of transformation is limited. And because modern culture worships immediacy, most people lose faith before the mathematics have a chance to reveal their force. That is the critical mistake. The first years are not impressive because the machine is still small. But what people call small is often the most important phase. It is where identity is built. It is where systems are formed. It is where consistency proves itself. It is where a person learns whether they can continue without applause. Anyone can feel committed when results arrive quickly. The question is whether you can remain committed when the results are still mostly invisible. That is the real test. The same principle applies not only to money, but to skill, judgment, reputation, health, and character. The great things in life usually grow slowly enough to insult your impatience. They ask you for effort before they offer evidence. They demand repetition before reward. They require faithfulness long before they produce scale. That is why so many people fail. Not because the path is impossible, but because the path is unexciting for longer than they expected. They want transformation without monotony. They want mastery without repetition. They want results without incubation. But life does not work that way. If you want financial strength, you must become the kind of person who can respect delayed outcomes. You must become the kind of person who understands that the future is built in the present, often invisibly. You must be willing to appear ordinary while your foundations are becoming extraordinary. And there is another dimension to compounding that people ignore at their own expense: knowledge. Financial growth is not only about capital, it is also about capability. The more you understand the world, the better your decisions become. The more you read, think, observe, and learn, the better you get at identifying value, avoiding stupidity, and remaining calm when others become irrational. Good judgment compounds. Clear thinking compounds. Skills compound. Discipline compounds. Relationships compound. Credibility compounds. A person who keeps learning becomes increasingly difficult to replace. A person who stops learning becomes increasingly easy to ignore. That is why intellectual laziness is a financial issue, not just a personal one. If your value does not grow, your options eventually shrink. If your understanding of business, money, incentives, and human behavior remains shallow, then your income may rise for a while, but your ability to protect and multiply what you earn will remain weak. So ask yourself honestly, are you compounding your mind, or are you merely consuming distraction? Are you feeding your judgment or numbing it? Are you becoming more useful, more thoughtful, more capable, or are you simply aging? Because time alone does not produce wisdom. Time only multiplies what is already there. If your habits are strong, time becomes your ally. If your habits are weak, time becomes the witness to your decline. This is why the three habits are connected. The person who spends to impress is usually thinking short term. The person who speculates for excitement is usually thinking short term. The person who refuses discipline because the reward feels too far away is obviously thinking short term. Underneath all three is the same weakness: the inability to govern the self. And until that changes, nothing truly changes. Now the good news: if habits built the cage, habits can also dismantle it. You do not need a miracle. You do not need a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You do not need perfect timing. You do not need genius. What you need is honesty, structure, and enough self-respect to stop betraying your future for temporary emotional rewards. So let me leave you with a practical framework. First, audit your life with brutal clarity. Not your intentions, not your excuses, your actual behavior. Review your spending. Review your subscriptions. Review your debts. Review recurring obligations. Review your financial leaks. Look at where your money has gone over the last 3 months and ask one ruthless question: did this purchase strengthen my life or merely comfort my impulse? That question alone can save people thousands. Second, create distance between earning and spending. The reason many people never build reserves is simple. Everything they earn lands in the same place where all temptations reach it. Make saving automatic. Make investing automatic. Remove the need for repeated willpower. If you wait to save what is left over, there will rarely be anything left over. You must decide in advance that part of what you earn belongs to your future, not your mood. Third, choose simple strategies you can repeat for years. Simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is often a competitive advantage because it reduces self-inflicted errors. Own productive assets. Keep costs low. Diversify sensibly. Avoid leverage you do not fully understand. Stop trying to outsmart the world every week. Most people do not need a more complicated financial plan. They need the discipline to stay with a sound one. Fourth, build your earning power with the same seriousness you bring to your investments. Learn how businesses work.
Learn how to communicate. Learn how to sell. Learn how to negotiate. Learn how to solve problems that matter. Learn how to think clearly when others are confused. Build a reputation for reliability. Build a mind that can create more value next year than it created this year. Your income is not fixed unless you choose stagnation. Fifth, redefine what success feels like. If success means visible luxury, you will spend forever. If success means autonomy, resilience, calm, flexibility, and margin, your behavior will change. You will start admiring different things. A fully funded emergency reserve will feel better than a status symbol. A growing investment account will feel better than applause. Low obligations will feel better than high image. Quiet strength will feel better than noisy validation. That is maturity.
That is where peace begins. At the end of the day, money is not the destination. Freedom is. Money matters because it can purchase options, and options matter because they give dignity to your life. The ability to leave a bad environment, the ability to survive an interruption, the ability to help people you love, the ability to take time to think, the ability to say no without fear, the ability to choose your work, your pace, your associations, and your standards. That is real wealth, not display, not performance, not noise. Freedom. And freedom is rarely built through dramatic moments. It is built through repeated acts of restraint, patience, and intelligence. It is built when no one is clapping. It is built in the ordinary weeks. It is built when you decide not to upgrade, not to speculate, not to interrupt the process, not to surrender your long-term life to short-term emotion. You do that often enough, and your future changes. Slowly at first, then all at once. One day, the pressure begins to lift. The emergencies do not feel fatal. The bills no longer dictate your emotional state. The world becomes less frightening because you are no longer exposed in the same way. Then opportunities start to look different. You can think more clearly. You can move more deliberately. You can choose rather than react. That is when you realize the truth. The goal was never to look powerful. The goal was to become difficult to corner. The goal was never to appear wealthy. The goal was to stop being vulnerable. The goal was never to impress the crowd. The goal was to reclaim your life. So start now. Not next month. Not after the holidays. Not when the economy improves. Not when you get a raise. Not when motivation strikes. Start with what you can control today. Cut what is hollow. Save what is possible. Invest what is sensible. Learn what is useful. Repeat what is effective. Do not worry if the beginning feels small. Small is how nearly every durable thing begins. What matters is not whether it looks impressive this month. What matters is whether the direction is finally correct. Because if the direction is right, time can do astonishing work. But if the direction is wrong, time only makes the consequences heavier. Your future is being shaped right now by ordinary choices that feel harmless in the moment. Treat them with the seriousness they deserve. Respect the power of your repeated behavior. Respect the cost of vanity. Respect the danger of excitement. Respect the miracle of compounding. Respect the fact that a financially strong life is usually built by people who learned how to master themselves long before they mastered money. If you can do that, if you can become patient where others are impulsive, disciplined where others are emotional, and thoughtful where others are performative, then the game changes. You may not look richer next week, but you will be becoming stronger. And strength, unlike image, can actually hold your life together.